Just a quick disclaimer in the beginning, I know this build is not Lightning Spear, it's not the most damage or the tankiest, it doesn't have the best clear. It's just something fun that I put together because I wanted to play spells in this patch, and I think Ember Fusillade is a lot of fun to play. The gear is not really min-maxed, I think you can do a lot more damage if you optimize the gear, but the build is really easy to level and you can basically play it from level 6 or something to tier 15 maps with no issues whatsoever. Put the whole video of the map that I'm doing at the end of this video if you want to check it out. Okay, so here's a quick explanation of the build. I'm using 2 Ember Fusillades that I'm casting alternatingly on left and right click for me. I think this tag is pretty known, Changrone used it in one of his videos. And for Ember Fusillade, the most important stat that you want to get on the tree is reduced skill effect duration. So I'm having this cluster up here and this cluster down here for the reduced skill effect duration. And during leveling, I would rush those 2 clusters. For the support gems, I'm not really sure what to use. I think Scatter Shot is pretty good for the additional projectiles. And the rest is here, Elemental Focus, Fire Mastery and Mobility, but as I said, I'm not sure about these. For the second one I'm using Wild Shards, and Wild Shards is pretty good in this build because there's a bug or exploit, I'm not sure, but if you get the proc and you keep on casting, you always get the 8 additional projectiles, so you can still do it alternatingly and cast left and right click, and as long as you cast fast enough you always get these 8 additional projectiles from Wild Shards, which is pretty nice. Also using super critical because I'm crit capped. I'm using considered casting and blindside. Blindside is a very good support gem in this build and I think more people should use it. It gives you more critical damage bonus and more critical hit chance. And I'm blinding enemies with my Raging Spirits and the blind support gem. The Raging Spirits also give you fire exposure with Infernal Legion, so they always ignite and always apply fire exposure. You can use Strip Away additionally for an increased exposure effect, but I'm using Fiery Death at the moment just to try it out. Maybe I'll switch to Maim, which I also want to try out. There's a lot of things that you can do with your Raging Spirits. Okay, Mana Tempest is also pretty good in this build because of the additional lightning damage and the empowered spell split to 2 additional targets, which really helps you with clear. I'm using Inspiration to reduce the mana and life cost in this build. Premeditation, okay, for the more damage, and Murderous Intent, which gives my Ember Fusillade Culling Strike, and I'm actually not using Lightning Warp. I have it in the build, but I rarely use it. It's basically just to indicate when a boss or an enemy is in culling range, and then you can cast Mana Tempest and cull the enemy. The Raging Spirits I already explained. I'm using Mana Remnants at the moment. I'm not sure if I need them anymore since I got a Jewel with mana on kill. Yeah, but it's still in the build and it helps. For the Life Remnants, I'm using Magnetism, which is really good. Clarity for mana sustain and Vitality for life sustain. Still have Cannibalism in there, but I don't think Cannibalism does anything because I rarely dip below the life. Mainly in boss fights, and there you don't get the Cannibalism proc because you don't kill anything. And with Blood Mage you're basically overcapped life all the time, so you don't get the life recovered on kill. Okay, I think that's it for the gems. For the gear, the only interesting thing that I'm using is the Effigy of Cruelty, which gives you critical weakness, and you apply the critical weakness very quickly. So basically for all rares and uniques you always have this 10 base crit from critical weakness. And if you check out Ember Fusillade, here you can see critical hit chance for me is 63% at the moment, which is of course without the critical weakness. And since I'm Blood Mage, it's 50% base crit. If you have more than 300% increased crit chance, then it goes to 60%. If you have the 10 additional base crit from critical weakness, you're at 25% crit chance, and with 300% increased, you're at crit cap. So it's very easy to get crit cap when you're using Effigy of Cruelty and Blood Mage. The rest of the gear is basically just some life here, MS for the boots, but the rest is life and resistances, life and resistances, life and resistances. Here, critical hit damage would be very good. The wand is only plus 3 levels of fire spell skills, and the rest is crit chance, a little bit of damage. Intelligence is actually pretty nice because then you can switch some intelligence to strength on the tree, and strength gives you more life. Here life resistances, a little bit of mana regeneration. Here's also a little bit of mana regeneration. Life resistances. So very basic gear. I think every piece is just a couple of exalts. For the jewels, here's some penetration. The skills mana cost converted to life cost is also pretty nice. And as I said before, here I have a jewel with recover 2% of maximum mana on kill. And since I'm using this, I spec'd out of all the mana regeneration nodes that I had before. The rest of the tree is just crit, mainly crit damage bonus. So here a lot of crit damage bonus, as much as you can get. Here a little bit of crit chance, of course you need it. The additional projectiles are, in my opinion, very good for Ember Fusillade and a lot of quality of life. So you get basically 50% chance for skills to fire 2 additional projectiles. Here I'm using the increased projectile speed on this side, which also helps to hit enemies, I feel. Yeah, a little bit of penetration down here. The rest is life regeneration, and with life regeneration I'm using Zealot's Oath. With Blood Mage you're basically always on full life, most of the time you're overcapped, so your life regeneration is basically always applied to your energy shield, and I'm right now I think I have like 1.6% with those 3 nodes and vitality of life percent regeneration. And since I have triple the life of compared to my shield, it's like a lot of energy shield regeneration that you get from this node. And I think it really helps with small hits during mapping. I'm also taking this cluster, not for the mana regeneration, but for the arcane surge on crit, which procs all the time and also helps with cast speed, which makes the build feel a little bit better, and the mana sustain. I think that's it, very basic tree, a little bit of ES up here. Yes, for leveling, if you want to level this build, leveling is really smooth. I think Ember Fusillade is a tier 3 gem or something, so you get it pretty early. You can either level with Enfolding Dawn, a Scepter, and Threaded Light, which gives you like 300-400% spell damage starting at level 6, so it's very smooth and easy to level. Starting level 26, I switched to a Sire of Shards for the additional projectiles. And with Ember Fusillade, the projectiles don't fire in a circle, but it's just basically additional projectiles that you get, and it's really smooth, so you can move around past Ember Fusillade, always have a lot of projectiles. Another thing that is really good for leveling in this build is Elemental Discharge. So Elemental Discharge gives you fire damage per intelligence against ignited enemies, and it procs a small explosion. Has a 1-second cooldown, but I think it doesn't matter that much. So you're using Raging Spirits with Infernal Legion to ignite the enemies all the time. And since you should really rush those 2 skill reduced skill effect duration clusters up here and down here, you basically only get intelligence on the way, and the intelligence then scales your elemental discharge explosions, and this is a lot of damage during leveling. Yeah, I think that's about it. I probably won't continue playing this because, yeah, I don't know. I'm already at tier 15 maps, and I'm not sure. My next quest is tier 8 plus Corrupted Nexus, so I would have to find a lot of Nexuses. I'm not sure if I want to do this. But yeah, that's the build. Thank you.